So much for being here for our second in our series of 14 clerk town halls, conversations with the clerks. An opportunity for us to meet with all of you, the residents here in Genesee County. We're excited to be here in Grand Blanc Township this evening to talk about what it is that local, municipal, and county clerks do. And answer any questions, and especially have a conversation around the election process and changes that have happened in the last 2 years in elections. So we'll start with some quick introductions about who we are and what we do, and then we'll open the floor for questions. My name is Domonique Clemons. I have the honor of serving as the Genesee County Clerk and Register of Deeds. I've been in this position for just a little over a year and a half, appointed to this role and will be on the ballot for this role. And as County Clerk and Register of Deeds, I oversee or am involved in 4 divisions. One being our legal division, which is the legal records and court documents. I do not have direct supervision or oversight over them, but provide strategy and assistance there. And then the 3 divisions where I directly oversee are our deeds division, which are property records, deeds, mortgages, liens, those sorts of things, where we're really focused on preventing fraud, specifically property fraud around mortgages and deeds. The other divisions that I oversee is our vital records, what I call our life events division, which handles the issuance of birth certificates, death certificates, marriage licenses, gun licenses, DBAs, notaries, and all of the important life paperwork. And then finally, and what probably takes the majority of my time as clerk register, is my elections division, serving as the chief election administrator for the county. Which really means I am kind of that middle person, the intermediary between the state, which has a huge role in our election process through the Bureau of Elections, and our local municipal clerks who are joining us here. The local clerks or municipal clerks do the lion's share of the work when it comes to elections, all day of operations, and they're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we at the county are there to provide assistance and support. We help train the poll workers. We are the ones at the county. We program the ballots. We get the ballots to the local clerks so they can process them and mail them. And we also help and facilitate the audits as well as the filings, both campaign finance filings and the candidate filings for many offices.
I am Lynn Henry. I am the deputy clerk here at Grand Blanc Township. I've been in the clerking world for 13 years. I also am the president of the Genesee County Governmental Clerks Association, along with board of directors for the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks, and I am the education chair, so I'm the one that programs all the education well across the state of Michigan. And I have the honor of working with Clerk Clemons and the city clerk of Burton, Rachel Boggs. We go around and doing the election certification training this year. So I love teaching. I love elections. I'm kind of a crazy one. I'm very organized, but elections happen to be one of my favorite things to do in my field. Like I said, I've been doing this for 13 years. Grand Blanc Township was one of the first to be able to do 9-day early voting. We are a pilot here for the state of Michigan, so the state has asked us to sit on a couple different other boards. So I'm on a couple different other panels with 9-day early voting, and doing a couple security roundtables for election this year because there's so many changes with election law. As most of you are aware, Proposal 22-2 gave us 9-day early voting, which will begin 2 Saturdays before every election, and then that Monday through Friday. So elections have changed drastically. We still have absentee voting as well as election day voting. So I am versed in elections pretty well around here.
Okay, she is very well versed in elections around here. My name is Mary Hopkins. I am the Grand Blanc City Clerk. I have been the City Clerk since 2018. However, I've been with the city for 26 years in a few different other roles. So yes, I stepped into the clerk's position in 2018 with the election for governor, which was the size of a presidential election. So got my feet wet very quickly. And since 2018, elections have changed dramatically. And the changes just keep coming. But that's part of the job. And as clerks, we learn to adapt and we just put our nose to the grindstone and keep rolling with the changes. The city obviously is a much smaller municipality than the township, so we're kind of working on different levels as far as the amount of registered voters. So I just have a little over 6,000 registered voters, but unfortunately, you're still kind of doing the same work, but she does it on a much larger scale. I'm honored to be able to work with Domonique and with Lynn. They both are very supportive to all the clerks in the county, and we all know that we can reach out to them in our need if we need to. So, and she kind of just touched on the early voting. We first implemented the 9-day of early voting with the presidential primary. That was our first opportunity that we had for that. It went quite smoothly. The turnout wasn't quite what we had hoped it would be. However, I anticipate in August and November, we will see that number grow exponentially. So we're prepared for that, and just happy to have so many avenues that we can offer to our voters, as being able to vote with the early voting, no reason AV voting, permanent ballot now. There's so many ways for people to vote other than just election day, and we're really happy to be giving those, all our voters those options. So.
All right, so that is a very brief overview of the hundreds of things that happen in the clerk world. And I know all three of us could probably talk for hours on any specific thing or change that's happened. But let's hear what you all want to hear about what we do and all of these changes that are happening. So let's throw out some questions or anything that you want us to clarify or provide some more information on. We just ask you to come up to the mic. We are recording.
Tony Acklin, the deputy clerk at Atlas Township, and I was just wondering, talking about being organized, which I'm that way as well. Is there any kind of checklist that's provided? I know there's a deadline list, but just to know you need to get this done first, then a visual list of what needs to be done prior to elections, or is that just something you kind of learn as you go?
Well, there's the state deadline calendar, which you probably are aware of.
Yes.
So those are dates that you really want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on.
Okay.
But I think a lot of times you borrow from other clerks, or you build that as you go. But
Okay.
Typically, other clerks are more than willing to help you build that.
Okay.
What exactly are you looking for, from A to Z? What should be done during this time period, that time period?
Just in what order almost? I feel I haven't looked into it, but maybe MTA or something. I could see them maybe providing just a guide, just of what to do first or.
Unfortunately, there's really not a guide out there.
Okay.
Mary had mentioned, you kind of, get a cohort around you and reach out to them. But I do have a list, as a matter of fact, a checklist, and then you put in the date and what day you contacted this person. So I would be glad to email that over for you so you're getting your feet wet. You really want to be able to lean on a couple people, especially going into August. You'll have Katie, obviously, but it is important that you'll get used to your own little timelines and what you're going to do. But, starting out is the first thing, right, is ordering your applications, getting those out, getting ready for those, right? Precinct kits come first. And then you make sure you have your other kits, and then you have to do your secrecy sleeves, and then everything comes in, so then you start testing. I don't know if you're going to use a company to test or if you're going to get a test deck. That would be the next thing, and then you just go into doing ballots, and going from there, you'll do your perm ballots first, then you'll do your applications, and then the cycle just keeps going over. But whatever you can get done ahead of time before you start issuing ballots, because once ballots come in, it's never ending, and same-day registration and voter registration.
Okay. Well, yeah, I appreciate that if you can send that over.
I will definitely send that over to you.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Clerk Hopkins, Clerk Henry, and Clerk Clemons for being here to share today. My question has to do with something that's been kind of heated recently, and that is integrity of the elections. And so I wondered if you could share in general maybe the top 3 things that residents, citizens should be looking for so that they can be assured that every election is done with integrity.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things, and we're probably all going to pick different things to cover. But election integrity is of the utmost importance, especially in today's age with so much that is happening, and making sure that our election process is safe and secure, I believe, is probably the number one priority of any municipal or county clerk in the state, followed closely by access to protecting voter rights, making sure that election day or the 9 days of early voting or mail-in voting, however a voter chooses to vote, that they have that right and that right is protected. In Genesee County, we're doing a lot of things to expand our election protection and election security. I am really proud of the fact that in Genesee County, our election equipment vendor is Hart InterCivic, which is one of the most sophisticated systems and best systems in election administration in the country, certainly in the state of Michigan. We've seen in the past issues with other election vendors that have happened from human error, from computer error. That is not something that happens in our system and is regularly being updated. Our election equipment has recently just been updated to the latest version of that. And one of the things I want to say that is so critical to say is that our election equipment, first and foremost, in Michigan, regardless of what anyone says, and if you're a voter, you know this, we vote with paper ballots. And we hear all times people saying we've got to go back to paper ballots. The thing that you fill out is a piece of paper. We have paper ballots that go into a tabulator machine. That tabulator machine is not in any way connected to the internet. And the computer that the drive from that machine gets plugged into is not connected to the internet. It is completely air-gapped system. So there's not that availability for interference from foreign actors or folks that want to have a cyber attack. Our election system is safe on the technological side of that. Our local clerks are doing a lot around the physical side. I'll let them talk about that. But the other thing that I'll mention is that we are working to continue to build even more security into our process, because at some point internet does have to be involved where we display the results to the public. So in our office, we've worked with some new companies who have better tools to report election night data, that it's easier for the voters to see and understand and be able to synthesize and tear that data apart however they want. And it's user-friendly. People can click through that, and it doesn't, of course, affect the general results, but helps you disaggregate and see that. That is all available on the county clerk's website on election night. But also, we have a proposal going to the Board of Commissioners next week for some additional funding specifically for election equipment that is going to continue to promote election security while also enhancing our ability to get election night results quicker on election night by empowering our local clerks to have special transmission units that will allow them to report election data and create a redundancy in the system that we can cross-check to make sure those numbers are correct on.
So hard equipment, like he said, is very secure. When we get updates, back when we had modems several years ago, they would do an audit trail when they'd come in and update, and they'd say, you took out the modem before you turned off the machine. That's how in-depth it gets as far as an audit trail. Here at Blanc Township, we now have a safe and secure room. They upgraded the clerk's office here, and so only 3 people have a badge to get in, where all of our ballots are safely secured every single night. Our equipment is in a locked room as well that are all sealed. Every seal number is written down. There's only 3 of us that have a key for that as well. And we took it one other step with our IT director, Nate. Our laptops on election day are only allowed to be used with whatever we've had programmed to get into it. There was an incident in northern Michigan where one of the election inspectors took a thumb drive and downloaded all the voter information off the poll book. So our laptops are locked down. They're only allowed to have my thumb drive in it. I do have a mouse that goes with it and a scanner. So anything else that tries to get put into one of our USB ports will not read it, will not allow it. It is not allowed on that. So with that being said, we happen to lead the way for part of the state of Michigan, where they've reached to our IT director, and several municipalities have now taken that upon themselves to lock down their own laptops for election day, not to have any other devices plugged into those laptops to keep them secure.
In similar fashion, at the city, we do also have a room where I am the only person with the key to that room. We keep our ballots in there during early voting. All of our equipment is stored in there. The other equipment is locked away also in another location when it's not being used. So we do have those checks and balances as far as not everybody in the office having access to that, or obviously the community. But I think they kind of touched on that, but I just want to touch on voters coming to me questioning election integrity. I always offer, I of course answer the questions, but I always welcome them to become certified election inspectors and to let them see the process, because I don't think people really understand the behind the scenes process of what goes into, the whole day, and how things are being calculated, and how we're keeping track of the number of voters that have come in and checked in, and the number of ballots that have been cast. Those numbers have to match, and at the end of the night, all of those numbers need to balance. So, we've all heard the stories about these magical absentee ballots being counted, or where did they come from? It all comes down to checks and balances. I know the number of ballots I sent out. I know the number of ballots that I have received in. I know how many I give to our absentee county board. They have to verify those numbers too. So, I want our voters and the community to understand that, yes, we're doing everything on this end, but there are checks and balances that you have to go by, and it is extremely difficult to have those magical ballots show up. So I hope by answering those questions to my voters and welcoming them to become inspectors, that they can see and feel more confident in the process.
The other thing that I'll mention when we talk about ballots, because we've heard rumors and allegations of truckloads of ballots from other states coming into Michigan to be voted, to be counted. Even if that was the case, it's physically not possible for those ballots to be counted. Every ballot in every county, every community that gets printed has a barcode on it that is programmed at the county. So a ballot even from the county next door, Oakland County, would not be able to be read into one of our tabulators in Genesee County. And many counties use completely different brands of equipment that is not able to read the data that we have on our ballots. So any messaging that there are ballots being shipped in on trucks from out of state or other places is just not possible to happen. But on the flip side of that, we've talked a lot about the security in the election process, but part of that checks and balance to ensure that all of these things continue to happen for every election is the audit process. Every part of the election is a public process, from the time that the ballots are approved at the Election Commission to when we test our election equipment through our public accuracy testing. Election day, you can not only come in and vote, but you can come in and observe a voting precinct. Election night, you can watch your city or township clerk close down the polling location. You can come down to the county and watch the county clerk's office receive the data that is brought down in person, and then you can watch the Board of Canvassers certify the election results. And if that's not enough, we also have the audit process, where every election, municipalities across the state are selected to be audited by the state of Michigan, as well as additional precincts selected to be audited by ourselves at the county, where we run through a very long checklist of every single procedure that happens in the election. Things as small as making sure every election worker has the proper certification and credentials, to making sure every ballot container is sealed properly. Every laptop that is used was downloaded the programming correctly, and was uninstalled correctly. Every single step of that process is marked and tracked in an audit system. And in Michigan, we do both accuracy audits as well as risk limiting audits to continue to make sure our system is running smoothly. That audit process also includes selecting precincts every single election, where we hand count the results to make sure it matches with what the tabulator produces. So we are confident when we say that our elections are safe and secure, not only because we're doing the work, but because then we're auditing the work after it's done as well.
Hello. I know that you had mentioned about educating and everything. If I'm interested in becoming an election worker, how would I go about doing that, and what does that all entail on election day?
Great question.
So you would reach out to either Genesee County, since we're doing training throughout Genesee County, or your local clerk to see if they need an election inspector. It is an application you'd fill out. You do have to declare a party. So in the two parties that you're able to declare is a Republican or a Democrat. And a lot of people think an election inspector is a volunteer position. It is a paid position for the day. It's also paid during 9-day early voting. So you'd fill out an application. Every 2 years you get certified. Jurisdictions 10,000 or larger are allowed to train their own election inspectors. Anyone under 10,000, they have to be trained through Genesee County Clerk's office. So by taking the course, if you're especially brand new, it's a lot of information we throw over to you during a 2.5 to 3 hour course. And then you'll be with seasoned veterans, and you'll learn the day-to-day process, how to turn on the laptop, how to run the qualified voter file on the electronic poll book. And then once you're certified, you can go anywhere in the state of Michigan for 2 years. You have to get certified every 2 years. And then as you really like it, we probably will promote you to chairperson if you're doing a great job. You kind of let us know if you'd rather work in the absentee voter county board, if you'd rather work in the polling location, and now you have 9-day early voting. So it's just reaching out, asking that municipality, or even at the county level, they might know if someone is looking for an election inspector. So currently, Blanc Township, we just did a huge consolidation. We went from 17 precincts to 10. And so I kind of have overabundance. I've had to ask people that have come. I've taken on a few new election and trainer inspectors, but I'm in charge of 150 election inspectors currently for Blanc Township. So that's a large quantity that we do train. We do the training here, PowerPoints and everything, so what goes where at the end of the night. So we do a little more in-depth training also on top of chair people if they're interested. But it's a course, a class every 2 years, and you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere in Genesee County across the state of Michigan. But keep in mind, there's 3 different types of equipment across the state of Michigan. There's 7 counties that use HART. The largest number of equipment is Dominion across the state. They hold the biggest portion of it. And then there's 11 that use ES&S across the state. So you just might have to learn a different type of equipment if you're going outside of Genesee County.
Good evening. Scott Bennett, Blanc Township Supervisor. I get to see a little bit of the inside of the workings being here at the township. I want to thank each of you for the integrity that each of you bring to the elections, and I've seen the process, and I'm confident that the systems that are in place also provide so much integrity to the whole process. I wondered if you could share with us what you think with all the changes that have occurred over the past couple of years with elections. What are some of the key points you want some of the electorate to know in advance of the upcoming election? Are there areas that could help them to be better prepared? Or I know we had precinct changes as far as locations. We're going to be sending that out. But are there issues or concerns that voters should be aware of that maybe are new, that they may not be aware of yet?
So the 2 things that come to mind for me is first the election that is coming up most recent to now, which is our August primary election. And the big thing that we need to hone in on and remind voters is that in primary elections, you are to choose one political party to vote in. On The left side of the ballot, you will see the options for the Democratic Party. On the right side, you will see the options for the Republican Party for the exact same races. And then there's also an option for the nonpartisan section. Those that are voting can choose to vote in either the Democratic section or the Republican section. And you cannot split. You cannot vote for a Republican in one position and a Democrat for another position. We can do that in November, but not in the August election. But even if you are choosing whichever party you choose to vote for in August, it's still important for everyone to complete the nonpartisan section. That is where questions like bond proposals and millage renewals and tax increases and judicial races, very important issues, are decided on. And those are for everyone to vote on in August, but we do have to keep that separation between the two parties in the August primary. Again, everyone can vote in November. The second thing that I'll say is one of the biggest changes that we've seen to Michigan election law, and we've already alluded to it a little bit, is that in Michigan it is now easier than ever to vote. You can vote on Election Day all day long, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The polls will be open at your precinct. We have 156 precincts across Genesee County. Most are pretty close to where the neighborhood that you live in. You shouldn't have to drive too far to get to your voting precinct on Election Day. However, you have the option to vote by mail. And if you request a mail-in ballot up to 30 days before the election, we will make sure that you have that ballot, and you just get the opportunity to fill it out at home. Do your research. You can wait for the pamphlets to start coming in the mail, because we're going to start seeing a lot of those, or do your research online, and you can then mail that ballot back. If you're not comfortable with mailing that ballot back, but you still want to fill it out at home, you can take that absentee, that mail-in ballot, and you can bring it back in person. You can drop it off to your city or your township hall. All of them have drop boxes, or you can bring it during the business day and drop it off. You can take that ballot on Election Day to your precinct and put it in the tabulator yourself. Or you can bring it to early voting. And in Michigan, we now have 9 days of early voting that include 2 weekends, the 2 Saturdays before the election, and the consecutive 8 days after that for 9 total days of early voting. Early voting is just like on Election Day, but on a day that is convenient for you. In Genesee County, every township, every city conducts their own early voting, which means in August we'll have 28 early voting sites, one for every municipality. So if you live in Grand Blanc City, you will go to Grand Blanc City Hall for your early voting site. Grand Blanc Township will be your township hall. And just like you would on Election Day, you'll fill out your paperwork, you'll fill out your ballot in person and run it through the machine. So making it just easier and giving voters much more choice when determining to vote. Perhaps you're on vacation on Election Day, you have to work a late shift. A little bit of planning and preparation, you have a lot of options to cast your vote, because it's that important. Elections, democracy is the most fundamental part of who we are as Americans, and we want to make sure that we make it as easy and as simple for individuals to be able to cast their votes and make the decisions on who's going to represent them.
There is a website called Michigan Voter Information Center, so anyone can look that up to find out the process of where they vote, where their polling location is, what times your municipality runs 9-day early voting. Everyone is a little bit different across Genesee County. Also, it'll tell you if your absentee ballot's been mailed out, if we've received your application, if we've mailed your ballot, if we received it back, if we've rejected it because there is no signature, the signature did not match. So all this, every person can find this about themselves on Michigan Voter Information Center. With Prop 22-2, as he said, we are required to have so many drop boxes per registered voter. So we have just under 33,000 registered voters here. So Grand Blanc Township actually has, we have to have 3 drop boxes. We had one here, we have one at McFarland, we have one out at the most southern end at next to Genesis at our fire hall. So during you can find where all the drop boxes are also for your own community on that Michigan Voter Information Center. Another thing that really needs to get out is we use social media, but 9-day early voting. I heard last night we did a training for chair people that they don't feel it was publicized enough about 9-day early voting and trying to make sure we get that out going into August and November. And they're hoping that the state of Michigan does a little bit better job to promote that, because there's been a lot of funding for 9-day early voting. But also in Prop 22-2, you've moved from, it gets a little confusing with the absentee voter applications and being on the permanent absentee voter list. And now there's a permanent ballot list. So if you've checked the permanent ballot list, automatically a ballot will be mailed to you before every election if it qualifies you. So for instance, we had a Goodrich school district, so only my Goodrich residents would have gotten that. Currently, in Grand Blanc Township, for every election, including Grand Blanc schools, we'll be mailing out minimally 6,385 ballots just on my permanent ballot list, on top of 7,800 applications. So those are never going to go away. Applications, that list, when you're out talking to people, that is something that's going to go away. They're not going to have the absentee voter application, which your seniors are used to filling out. So the process has changed this year, where they've checked the box and they get the ballot automatically. And I think that's what they thought all along what the absentee application was for, that they'd get the ballot. So that's going to clear it up a little bit for them this season. I've had a few people already reach out, but they'll get the ballot. If they didn't, they'll mark the box for August, and they'll get the ballot from here on out. And that actually moves with you if you move within the state of Michigan. If you're on that permanent ballot list, that will move with you. It's just promoting it out in your own jurisdiction too. You know, if you have social media, website, we are putting out a newsletter in with our summer tax bills of different dates for the elections for this year. So part of it's our responsibility as a jurisdiction to make sure that the voters are well informed. We really promoted when we changed all of our locations and went from 17 to 10. So we have to take responsibility as a municipality to make sure that we are getting all the information out to voters as well.
I'm not really sure what else I could possibly cover after those two, but I guess just to reiterate a couple of their points, with the permanent ballot list, I don't think people really understood exactly what that was when that came about. As Lynn said, once you sign to be on that list, you're on that list until you ask to be removed. I mean, you have to make that request.
In writing, that request
in
has
writing,
to be done.
and that's correct. And so, so that's voters do need to be made aware of that. That's very accommodating and a nice option to have. You'll automatically get that ballot without having to sign an application for each election. The one thing that I have tried to point out to our snowbirds, this is where it gets a little bit sticky. Absentee ballots are not forwarded by the Postal Service. So I just have tried to make sure that my voters do know that if they're going to be away during election time, they need to let us know the address where they're going to be, whether it be in Florida or Arizona or wherever it is, because we're going to mail that ballot out and it's not going to be forwarded. So that's an important fact that we kind of need to get, I think, out there, because I don't believe everybody understands that. That, and yeah, as she said, just a little bit more for myself, doing a little bit more promotion of the early voting, social media wise, and on our website, because that, I agree, I don't think a lot of people knew about it for February, so we do need to get the word out in a better manner for that. So yeah, all of these changes have come fast and furious, and it's been a lot for us, but it's a lot for the voters to take in also. So I think that's about it.
I failed to say my name earlier. I'm Beverly Brown, a county commissioner representing District 4, which is Grand Blanc Township, Mundy Township, part of Flint, and part of Flint Township. So I heard you say that you could go to this website, Michigan. What was the website again?
Michigan Voter Information Center, MVIC.
Okay.
The short link to that is michigan.gov/vote.
Okay. And so I can go there and really determine whether or not my vote has been received and registered.
Yes.
Okay. Is there another way that someone could verify that their vote has been counted if they don't know that website to go
They
to?
can call our office, like if
Okay.
they want to know if it's been received in. They can always get a copy of their voting history to make sure it's been received in after the election. Anyone can come in and get a copy of their own voting history. But you can, like I said, you can follow the trail from start to the end on that website.
Okay. I asked that because I've heard of other districts or precincts, maybe outside of this community, where email has been sent to somebody saying that we did receive your vote and thank you for voting or something like that.
Yes, there is that capability, as long as you have the staffing for that.
Okay.
Like I sit on the board, so I've been trying to hear that myself. It is an email, but you have to have everyone's email address. So if we don't have an email address in the system, it wouldn't happen. So I myself am trying to figure out exactly how it's all in a click of a button, but you do have to have up-to-date email addresses in order for that to work. But what they do, if you clerks, I know across the state, they do send one out like, yes, we received your application, thank you, or we received your ballot back in. And it's all done by reports and the qualified voter file. But that is, yes, there are people that are out there doing that.
Okay. And like my last question, what if you have an absentee ballot and you spoil it for some reason? Can you tell voters what the process is to get a brand new ballot?
So for one, don't be afraid to come in, but you'll have to come into your local clerk's office in order to spoil that. You'll have to fill out paperwork. Back before, like especially as she mentioned earlier, snowbirds, before 2018, you could call and say, I didn't receive my ballot. We could go in and spoil it, send you a new one. Now law has changed. We have to have a written form from you that you didn't receive it with your signature on it to verify. Then we can spoil it and reissue it. So they come into the office and bring their ballot. We spoil that one, fill out the form, give them a new ballot. They can do it again. But we have to have paperwork now. Back in the day, you didn't have to, so it's just an extra step. But you can only, if you're pre-processing, if your jurisdiction is pre-processing, depending on when they start to pre-process, you're not allowed to spoil your ballots any longer after that Friday before 9-day early voting starts. So if you can go in on election day and spoil it, then surrender it, get a new ballot, and vote that way. But as far as being able to come in after that Friday before 9-day early voting is no longer, because we're already pre-processing ballots. They've already gone through. Once they're gone through, we can't pull them back out.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say that, again, that I get to see things close up, and I don't know that the general public realizes the amount of work that the clerk's offices are undertaking these days. And I've seen it for a few years, but I know in the last few years, the volume of work, both to make sure that the integrity is there, and then with the early voting and with 2 weekends, the clerk's offices around the state, I know are putting in lots of hours. And I know that locally here that you guys do a fabulous job, and it's a very arduous job, very exact, and some jobs you can get away with making a mistake, 10% of the time or something like that, but with the clerk's work, there is no mistake allowed, and we appreciate the detail that you put in here in Genesee County and in Blanc, and thank you, though, because I'm not sure everybody realizes the volume of work that you do, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Come on up, yeah.
So putting it getting an absentee ballot and putting it in the machine on election day, is that new?
That is new, yep. So that was one of the laws that was recently enacted within this year in conjunction with the 9 days of early voting. So we know that hopefully in August, we're hoping by August, for the 9 days of early voting, there'll be a button on the online poll book where folks can hit to convert their ballot. Poll workers can click the button that'll allow a voter to convert their ballot from an absentee ballot to an AV ballot to an election day, an ED ballot, and then they would be able to run that through the tabulator just as is.
So it'll be like they'll come in, it'll be filled out probably because I did it, and then instead of They just come on that. That's the only day they can do it. Though.
So
During 9.
they can do it during 9 days and on election day. So what happens, they still have to fill out an application when they come in to vote, even though they've already filled an application out with you. So the first step is still when you're like even 9-day early voting or in the polling location, they still have to fill out an application, still show you their driver's license. Once it comes up in the electronic poll book, you're going to look to verify that that ballot number on the stub matches what you have in the electronic poll book. If it does, then you can move forward, give them a secrecy sleeve, and then they go through, put in the secrecy sleeve, and then they'll give it to the person over here at this corner. They'll tear off the stub and they'll feed it through. If by chance that ballot stub number does not match what we have in the system, you'll call the clerk's office. We'll go in and reject that ballot. They'll sign a surrender that ballot, and they'll sign that envelope that they surrender it to you. But you have to call the clerk's office so we can go in and reject it. So that ballot number is not floating around and trying to get put in during the AV counting board. So we go and pull them up, reject it, and then you would just issue them a normal ballot on election day. So the key point is that in that secrecy sleeve, that the ballot number matches what we have on our system. If it doesn't, you call the clerk's office. And that is with any absentee ballot, since you're new. So if someone comes in and says, I never received my absentee ballot, you're going to, once again, call the clerk's office. They'll tell you, oh, no, we already received it. They cannot get another ballot. And then you kind of explain that to them. If they have an issue, they can call us or come down to our office. We'll be sure to go over it with them. Or they'll sign an affidavit that they never received it, and we'll go in there and reject, because saying that they're voting on election day on our end and our computers on election day, and then you'll go ahead and give them a ballot, okay?
And obviously they'd have to fill it out again, like if they showed up on election day.
And you cannot give them that ballot to copy. Like if they want it to see, oh, can I just go ahead and copy it? No. Or even if someone was to come in and spoil, they're not allowed to have 2 ballots in their hand at one time. If they wanted to, they could, in the secret thing, take a picture of it real quick, then come up and give it to you to spoil. That way they could file it, but they're not allowed to ever have 2 ballots at one time.
That makes sense. And then one other thing, I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on this since it's newer. The whole permanent ballot thing, is that going to be tracked in a way that, like, if people aren't using it or kind of like, I don't want to say abusing that option, but is there any kind of, like, if you're mailing it to someone and then they keep showing up or they don't, like, is there going to be like an audit of that eventually of like, because you know how you were saying how many you have to mail out, you would hope everyone is.
But if they're not using it, you can't remove them. But if they're getting sent back to you, then there's a procedure you can follow. So you really have to do some legwork with the post office, the way the USPS has been running. So you might have that says that the street number does not exist, and you know darn well it exists. So you got to do a little legwork. Sometimes you may have to reach out before you can take them off that list, but you have to send them a notice. So it's just what's going to happen if they're not there. Someone's going to bring that ballot to you. You're going to double check it, obviously, you know, because you have to check every signature, right? If it doesn't match, you're going to mark it in. There's a rejected signature does not match. Send the letter out. Follow proper protocol. If that ballot just continually comes back, there are steps in there that you're even going to notify that voter that they're no longer there, and they shouldn't even probably be in your voter file. So you're going to send them a rejected notice where they would say that could be forwarded. As you know, ballots cannot be forwarded. So there will be a different process if you get a slew, and sometimes you're going to know they're your snowbirds. You're going to run into this a lot for November. So you might just have to pick up, have a phone call, send them a letter where the letter would be forwarded and say, hey, your ballot came back to me. Where would you like this mailed? That wasn't on the application. And unfortunately, currently, qualified voter file does not hold a temporary address. If they have a mailing address, a P.O. box, whatever, that can be held in the qualified voter file, but a temporary address unfortunately is not held in there. So that's something you have to put in every time. So you'll just have to pay attention to the label that's on the ballot that comes back. There's no form now. That's the hardest thing to get over right now. When you have all the applications, you have all those ballot numbers written on, right? But now when you're doing the permanent ballot, it's just one list of paper you're going to have. And what happens when you do a permanent ballot list, you're going to issue the very first number and count how many applications, it'll give you the last, and it'll assign those ballot numbers to that whole list. So if I have 5,000 in 2 different precincts, it's going to go 1 through 2,500 And then it'll start again in the next precinct. So it'll be by a list that you will have to audit. That's the only thing you'll have when it comes to the permanent ballot.
Okay. And you're finding though, like mailing them out, people do return them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was like questioning, being that, like before how you were saying you have to like select every election every year. They're trying to get away from that, putting on a permanent ballot list.
You're going to find that Prop 18-3, no reason absentee, that's not going away. We normally issue on a big election anywhere between 14,000 and 16,000 ballots, and that's not going to change. So they're still going to continue to use that. They're going to feel more comfortable now just getting the ballot. That's really what the voters wanted all along. That's why they passed Prop 22-2 versus doing the application all the time.
It works. Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes, we mail quite a few to PO boxes. Voter registration cards cannot be mailed to a PO box. So you have to put that in another envelope because their physical address has to be on a voter registration card. But we know ahead of time so we can pull those out, put in an envelope, and then put the label on for a PO box.
Just a couple of minutes left. Are there any final thoughts, any burning questions to ask the clerks? Now's your chance. All right, seeing none, we'll go to some closing thoughts from the clerks.
Oh, closing thoughts. Wow. Okay. And now you're going to let me go first this time, huh? Well, I wish there would have been a little bit bigger turnout tonight, but you all had very thoughtful questions that, you asked great questions, and I think we covered quite a bit of information here tonight. So it was a pleasure to have you guys here tonight, and yeah, hopefully we can do this a little bit more often.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Don't be afraid to reach out to your clerk wherever you may live, and ask any questions. We're there to help you, to educate you, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There's no question is a dumb question, as I tell everyone that comes in. So just be transparent. It's important to be transparent. That's key.
Just thank you all for being here. As you've heard, the role of clerks is a big role, and it's very different depending on what jurisdiction or municipality you're in. The role of a city clerk, a township clerk, and a county clerk all have some unique quirks to them. But each level of government, we're all working together in tandem to get the job done. We have a great team of local clerks here in Genesee County that collaborate and work well with each other to make sure we have a strong process. But the other thing that's important to recognize is while your township clerks are elected officials and your county clerk is an elected official, unfortunately, the elected Grand Blanc Township clerk was unable to be here, Dave Robertson, but he does some great work here in Grand Blanc Township. And although we're elected on a partisan basis on the various parties, and none of us hide from what our party affiliation is, when it comes to the work of administering elections or being a clerk, we all do a great job at putting that aside and are able to work together across party lines. We have a number of Democratic clerks in Genesee County, a number of Republican clerks in Genesee County, and quite frankly, when you put us all in a room together, usually you can't tell who's who. As far as partisan affiliation, and that's really how it should be in the role of clerks in election administration. We are here first and foremost to make sure that we have a safe election process, a secure election process, a transparent election process, but also an election process that guarantees an easy and accessible right to vote for all American citizens. Elections are the foundation to American democracy, and it is our job to uphold that foundation. And I'm very proud to work alongside some really amazing clerks on both political parties and both spectrums. And we're going to continue to do that work regardless of the challenges and the misinformation that's out there. And we're doing events like this to combat some of that and make sure that we get the truth out there and the real information. So hopefully you all had a great time, and for those of you who might be watching at home online, I hope you learned something new. And if you have more questions or want to dig in even deeper, we're going to continue these series. Next week we'll be meeting in Mundy Township. And we'll be posting online there. I believe it is Tuesday of next week at 3 p.m. at the Mundy Township their Senior Enrichment Center. So we'll continue the conversation next week. Thanks for coming out, everybody.